Public Outreach Committee of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District for July 27th, 2020 to order. Is there any member of the public who would like to make comments at this time? I see nothing happening here, so my expectation is there's no one that wishes to make comment. Moving on then, we will take the very first action item, which is to approve the or consider adoption of the June 3rd, 2020 committee meeting minutes.
I move approval.
I second.
All right, so and I will concur. So we have a motion. Is all in favor? Please say aye.
I think you got to do a roll call vote.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we still virtual, whatever it is.
Arlene, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Director Edwards
Approval.
and Director Riley
Yes.
and Director Adams.
Aye.
Unanimous approval.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And so now we will go on to the second item on our agenda, which is to consider the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding the selection of a public outreach consultant. And my expectation is we've all had the opportunity to read our board report that showed the RFP and the 3 applications that we had. So my expectation is that we'll have a presentation on this.
It will be a fairly short presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair. So at the request of the committee, we did send out 8 requests for proposals. Of that, we received three responses, Terry Feinberg, TMD Creative, and Wellman Ad. And as part of the staff report, I think I summarized what the high points of the applications, any questions that we had, and then also what their proposal was in terms of the how much they wanted for retainer and to do some work. And then also I provided you with their websites. And so I'm hoping everybody had a chance to go out to their websites, look and see what their products look like. And the recommendation today is just to hold a discussion and come up with the next steps for this, whether it goes to the board with a recommendation or whether you want to do additional work with this. And anyway, that really concludes my presentation.
And I should point out that Mr. Wellman and Mr. Feinberg are on as attendees. So if we had any particular questions, they will be available. We can unmute them. You know, my take on it is we went from a pretty small operation in the past. All 3 of these responders, I think, were responsive. I've seen some of the work. There's some very creative and very innovative folks here proposing. I do think that the depth of TMD Creative is greater, and I think their proposal was most responsive to exactly how they would interact with the district. By no means does that detract from the quality of work of either of the other 2 proposers. I would kind of lay it at your feet for discussion. While TMD is a little more expensive, they're more all-encompassing in-house. And I do recall from the many years with TBC Communications that the outside services always brought the monthly retainer up a little higher. So the distance between these proposals with more in-house services and fewer in-house services is probably a wash or close to it. It might be the opportunity for the district to go with a deeper team for a change and see how it works for the 8 or 9 months that we'll have for the fiscal year. But I'm not making a recommendation other than to say I've heard very good things about TMD. I've seen the work of Wellman. I think it's outstanding. And we know some of the background and client base of Mr. Feinberg. So with that, forward discussion.
Great, thank you. Are there any members of the committee that would like to ask questions or provide comment?
Through the chair, how many did we send out? It was a total of 8?
We sent 8, yes.
Okay, how many do we have in the county? Is it more than 8?
No, that's about it. There's some small ones. There's a couple we left off the list that we had familiarity with before, one of which we couldn't find, and one was, of course, our former. So,
Okay. Okay.
but folks like Wendy Brickman did not respond.
Armanoska didn't respond.
Armanoska did not respond.
Okay. Now, TMD, I see on their in their report, did they do work for the district before? On page 32 of the staff report.
I saw that too. I think that was an error. I think they were actually referring to Monterey County.
Yeah, I think they were thinking about us while they were typing that. But yeah, they did not do work for us before.
Okay.
They are doing work for the county at this point.
All right. That's all the questions I have at this time.
Thank you. George, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any particular questions about the proposals. I do have a fair amount of comment to make, and I'm just wondering if it's proper to have the those that are here, I mean, that are online, to make any introductory comments at all in their public discussion opportunity before we go forward.
Let me just ask our esteemed leader if that would be appropriate, maybe even viewing it as a public comment.
Yeah, you can go out to the public.
Oh, well, okay, I'll go out to the public first and then I'll come back and ask for remarks from the two applicants who are here.
Well, they are our only public.
Oh, well, how convenient. Okay, so thank you both, Terry and Phil, for being with us today. I believe that you will be unmuted, and we'll go alphabetically with first names, and we'll start with Phil. If you'd like to have just maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes to just give us a little bit of an overview or whatever you'd like to say.
Excuse me, Chair Adams?
Yeah.
Did you want me to set the timer or just allow the persons to speak?
I think we should probably hold like we do for most meetings.
All
So
right,
why don't
thank
we set
you.
the timer for 3 minutes.
All right, I will do that. Thank you. Just
Okay.
a moment so I can get the timer up.
And unmute.
So is Phil unmuted?
Not
Mr.
yet.
Wellman, you may go ahead and present your comment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to represent myself here today with you all. I've got a few things to say, and then if you have questions, I'm certainly open to it. So I just wanted to say that during this transitional phase for MPWMD, it's critical for a public outreach consultant to help you communicate effectively with the public and to build trust in your ability to manage the peninsula's water supply. I've worked with a wide variety of clients, from public agencies like MST, nonprofits like the Monterey Jazz Festival, and private companies all over Monterey County. You're all familiar with my work, and I think it speaks for itself. I approach every client and project as a unique communications challenge. Certainly, my experience with water issues in this community provides helpful background. And yes, my agency played a huge role in getting Measure J passed, but that has no direct bearing on what I would be hired to do for you. However, what I did learn during the campaign was that there was a lack of trust in MPWMD in the community, and we needed to find ways to counter that. That is the ongoing role I play and the real strength that I bring to this proposal. And that is being forever sensitive to the needs of customers and helping my clients to speak clearly to those customers. I'd love to work with your team to help develop messaging and build the kind of community trust that will support the great water solutions that I think MPWMD can bring to this community. So I've got a minute and a half left, and I just wanted to, one thing I did want to point out is that for the last 15 years, I've operated as a one-man sole proprietor. And the reason for that is that for a long time, I worked with a crew and I brought a lot of the work in-house. But I found over and over again that it limited me to the resources that I could bring to play, depending on what the needs of the customers were. So that really pushed me in the direction of building a virtual agency. And today I work with, I work with resources and clients all over the country. I've worked with them all over the world with the Jazz Festival. And it allows me the freedom to be able to pull in whoever I need, depending on the nature of the specific project I'm working on. Now, in the case of MPWMD and the scope that I've seen here, it's really probably, a 1 to 2 person responsibility, and the strategic planning capabilities that I bring would essentially allow you the opportunity to take a good look at what lies ahead and exactly how we would take responsibility for that. So, can you still hear me?
Okay, Mary, you're now unmuted.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Phil. Your time has expired,
Okay.
so this is just great. Let me just see if there are any quick questions that we have for Phil Wellman from the board members or committee members, rather. Alvin?
Are you working with any other new clients at this time?
Any other new clients?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I would ask you their name, but I better let you keep that to yourself.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank
Okay.
you. George, have you any questions? for
No, I
Phil
do not.
Wellman? Okay, thank you. With that in mind, then, I think we will say thank you very much. It was a great presentation. And now we will move to our second presenter, Terry Feinberg. And Arlene, if you could please unmute Terry and set the timer for 3 minutes.
Mr. Feinberg, please make your comment.
Yet I didn't. You hear me?
Say a little bit more. It sounds like you were waking up a bit, breaking up a bit.
You have it now?
Yes.
Okay, that was frustrating.
Okay.
Hi.
We'll give you an extra-
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Actually wasn't expecting a presentation, just tuned in to listen to your deliberations. I've got a good history in the county working with business enterprises as well as several government entities. As I stated in my response to the RFQ, I was a partner owner in one of the leading agencies, Moxie Marketing, in the county for 5 years, and 3 years ago attempted to semi-retire. That did not prove, the retirement piece of that did not prove successful, but I was successful in eliminating overhead and day-to-day management operations so that I can focus on what I do best and what I enjoy most, which is the strategic communications, the media and public relations, and actually getting things done without having to focus on the overhead and the day-to-day of running a business. Got strong media ties in the county. While I have not worked with water agencies in the county, I've worked with several public agencies in the county. And again, also have ties to the community. I think those ties to both media and the community are important, but more important is really developing the strategy up front and making sure that everything you do from a communication standpoint, really has an end goal in mind and a strategy behind it. I too am a one-man shop for really very, very similar reasons. Moxie has some in-house talent, creative talent, but there too, and Moxie is, I still do a lot of work with them. We've chosen to use primarily outside creative because everybody has a style and ability in certain areas. And if you're stuck trying to fit a project to your overhead, you might not get the best results. And having the freedom to really match the creative talent. And I work with 3 designers on a regular basis and 2 others occasionally. I really think that gives me a strength and an advantage. And the people I work with also don't have any overhead. So their billing rates are $50 to $60 an hour versus a full agency billing rate, which may be $125 or $150 an hour. So I'm not sure how far beyond the double zeros I went after the 30, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Mr. Edwards, have you any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Riley?
Not to the candidates, but when we bring it back to the board, I'll have some questions and comments.
Good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Terry. Thank you both. I don't know if it's appropriate to see if we have any questions from staff of the 2 presenters. Not hearing anybody raise to the mic. I will bring it back to the board for discussion then. So let's just see what we have going here. I hope you'll forgive me. I'm a little bit lame here. I have a new computer system and it's a little bit wonky for me. So my apologies.
That's all right. We all got
Thank you.
something new.
Thanks. Yeah, it's not new.
Yeah.
So, George, yes.
If I'd like, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to the RFP a little bit on the criteria that was established and promoted and the response that we got. And this is a little bit of a challenge to our GM based on his earlier comments about TMD. But looking at the RFQ, it looked like we were asking for support or assistance or leadership or whatever for advertising, mailing, printing, pretty fundamental, simple stuff. We got, and also the description of the 5 main goals of the district. I know they're all water related, but I think the district is looking for or helping trying to define its leadership role. And I'm trying to compare the 3 responses that we got as well. TMD went pretty heavily into strategic planning and a pretty wide scale approach to all sorts of issues. And I'm not sure we're there yet as an agency. That's kind of my concern. I think from my standpoint, I think we're still moving in that direction. We're trying to transition or we're trying to evolve. And I'm not sure we're there yet. So I'm kind of thinking that my interest is more on, instead of getting a super heavyweight into our role here, I'm looking for maybe less of that and see how we evolve with what we know as opposed to what we can learn. And I want to start from where we know or where we are rather than where we would like to be. And so I'm looking at more of a transition role for this new contract. And if it's 9 months or so, and then we can reevaluate it later, then we have the opportunity to do that. But I'm just a little reluctant to jump in with a pretty substantial commitment that has a lot of strategic planning elements to it at this point for this contract. That's more of an opinion. I don't think it's a real question.
Opinions are accepted here. Alvin, do you want to make any comments or have any questions at this point?
No, I just got a problem. And I want to hear what y'all recommendations is before I give my recommendation, what we should do with this one. If y'all got a recommendation who we should approve, TMD wasn't here, right?
That's
Correct.
They wasn't here. So to me right now, TMD don't look like they want a job. And I see that. I see the other two gentlemen here. So even though we could have provided the money for TMD if we have it. So do we have any money for TMD if we went with them?
Yes, we do.
We do. But they didn't want to show up.
Well,
we just
Sure.
clarify that.
Say
Stephanie,
again?
can you
I
respond?
was just going to say that I did not contact the three firms that responded to let them know that they should be on this meeting.
Oh, thanks a lot for helping me.
Terry and Phil just on their own, as members of the public, decided to join in.
Well, they want a job. That's what I would probably did. You know, not saying somebody got to call me to be here. And I just got to, if the board want to make committee want to make a recommendation, my recommendation is this one, because I know Mr. Wellman a little bit, is we take it to the full board and let everybody see what we see here and discuss it. I just have my reservation because I know Mr. Wellman a little bit. I know about who he worked with. I see one of our directors he don't work with. He's on that, in that resume. That's right, George. I see your name. You out there. I know another one, Adam Scow, you know, Bruce. I know all them, you know, and they did work for Public Water now, which I know. I just got a little problem with that, or the perception if we went with Mr. Wellman. Then that, just the perception of we selecting him, that's why I'm trying to push this to the full board. Unless y'all have a recommendation who we should go with.
George, you need to unmute. Thank you. Whoop. Got it. Whoop.
Just touch it one time, George.
Yay. Okay.
All right, yeah, it's that one time, it's that kind of shaky thing. Yeah, I can understand the perception issue here a little bit, but not totally. And granted, I used Wellman, so I'm just looking at his success rate rather than the fact that the relationship existed or a business relationship existed. I would like, and maybe this is kind of the wrong way to go about it, but I would like to see us try to narrow down the thought process a little bit. I kind of think TMD has priced themselves out as far as I'm concerned. I think they've suggested a pretty significant role for themselves and a pretty significant strategic interaction for the district. And I think that's premature. I just think we have a strategic goals workshop coming up soon. We're still in the early stages of playing a much stronger role in water issues throughout our region and with our public agencies as well. I mean, and state agencies. So I think we're in an evolution. I think we're in a transition mode. And so I'm just wondering, I have less interest in TMD than I have in the other two. And that's all I'm trying to suggest is if we can narrow down the focus, then maybe the discussion makes more sense. But I'm just suggesting that we kind of narrow it down to the two that I think are the two that are probably on the scale of what we're looking for.
I've really been going all around the block on this, and I think probably being just frank and honest is the best way. And I am conscious of what the optics would look like by choosing the same firm that represents Public Water now and has a really close attachment to them. It just, and exactly on the opposite side of that, why wouldn't we take somebody that knows about the organization better than just about anybody else? So I'm kind of battling those two things. As far as TMD goes, they are doing some work right now for the county. It was urgency work on COVID, and they've been doing an excellent job in that regard. And I guess the one thing I'm conscious of is perhaps what we had in the RFP was not as indicative of what it is that we're really looking for as it may have been. And they were responding to what we saw in the RFP. I don't know. I also feel that maybe having a bigger firm at this point would be a good idea for us. A firm that has worked with a whole lot of different types of organizations in the county that might have a different touch points than some of the other applicants have. I can see that at this point, I doubt very much that we're going to have a agreement among ourselves as a subcommittee as a committee of three on where we should be going with this. We don't have a staff recommendation to help guide us in this at all. Definitely, we're going to have to bring it to the full board. There's no question about that, because it's simply, what we need to do. And I'm curious whether or not, because we're talking about contract negotiation, if this is something that we could have handled at the board level in closed session. So that's really a question to you, Dave.
Not sure. I'll have to talk to Mr. Laredo on that one.
Yes, Mr. Riley.
I would like to just add that when we contract with anybody, we ask for an RFP or RFQ. We deal with what they present. They deal with what we presented. And there are always gaps in the communication system when you write it down and you talk about it. So it's a little bit different. I understand that. But I do think that what we end up with is a contractual relationship between the district that wants a service and a contractor that can provide the service. So the contractor does what the district wants it to do. So they don't freelance. And I'm sure every PR firm and the three we have and those that didn't even apply respond. I'm sure they have the same kind of dialogue within their own professional staff and whoever they deal with, that they have one business in doing this, we have another business doing something else, and we have this similar business doing similar things in similar places. And I'm sure they all have discussions about how to separate what they do, because it's a contractor relationship. It's an obligation to deliver based on what the consultant, what the contractor wants us. We're the hirer. We hire them. So I just think that the product we want, the service that we want, is based on what we want as a district. So the perception maybe of what's maybe awkward or maybe prominent, I don't know, but it's there, and I can understand that. But I also think that it's a contractual relationship that gets pinned down and gets monitored, and we ought to be able to understand that that's the relationship that we want. It's not history, or it's not more the same. It's different.
Well, I feel like I understand what you said. I think there's good thoughts to that. One of the first times ever, I think I disagree with you.
That's fine. That's what boards are all about.
I guess so. So I'm trying to figure out, if we don't have consensus, we can just take the whole, punt this to the board for their additional input. I'm kind of uncomfortable with that. I just wish that we were, I wish we had more choices,
Yeah.
really, and not feeling like we do. Don't know whether or not we should, try to reach out to some of those that did not apply and ask whether or not they would reconsider, find out why they didn't apply. I mean, we're talking about something that is a hugely important contract that we're going to be letting. I mean, this is kind of defining the future of the water security of the people on the Monterey Peninsula, and I'm nervous about it. I really am. My instinct, my gut tells me to go one way, and I have a hard time, backing away from that. I just do. So, with that in mind, I must say I feel like I would prefer that we not make a recommendation to the full board. If you want to take the results of this action to the board, we can do so, or we could direct staff to please go back and contact those the other applicants that did not put forward an application, and see if we can get some additional people to respond.
Yeah, and we can also do a little more digging on whether we missed anybody. Certainly. Stephanie, how long did we put this out there before responses were due?
I think it was 3 weeks.
Yeah, so we'd need to kick this can down the road, probably another month, if you want to do that. But we can certainly try to, both revisit folks who have resources and chose not to respond, as well as try to beat the bushes and see who else comes out.
So, comments? Yes, George.
Yeah, yes, Chair. I support what you're saying, because I feel the same way just about what you're saying. I just got the perception of Mr. Wellman. I like his group. I think they can do a good job. But the way things are right now, with public water now, I know he shouldn't be related to that. This is a different project, but I want to make sure that we keep all three of them in the mix for the next time we look at this and see if something come back up. But if it do, I just like to go for the whole board so they can see what we're seeing right now. If we got the money for TMD, I suspend if they can do it. But I hear Director Rowley and what he's saying. He don't think we're ready for them yet. But I support what you're saying, going back out there and seeing what we got. And I'm not trying to eliminate nobody, but I just got that feeling out there of the perception of if we went with Wellman Act,
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, they say we got the money, but I wish they were there to make their sale, and they might sell it good. But if we stay with the three, let's take it to the full board and let them shake it out. But if we want to go back out, I agree with going back out.
Okay, thank you very much, Alvin. George?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hear you guys. I'm a little concerned. Well, I'm not really concerned. I have a question. Is there any sense of urgency about getting this done? I know we're behind schedule on what we're doing, but I don't know that we have any major promotions or anything going on outside of what's kind of normal. I think your staff is making certain information available and trying to, and working with Cal-Am on the ads and so on that now exist. But if we're not trying to break new ground yet, or we're not thinking about what that new ground might be, then I think we can delay this a little bit. But I'm asking the general manager if he'd comment on the delay question.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the 8 or 9 activities, key messages, print advertising, and other products. So our branding ads we're recycling right now, but our brand is still getting out there. So, you see the Water Matters. I think last month it was right below the announcement of somebody running for the board in the Pine Cone. It was same page. Media outlets, we're working directly with the Weekly and the Pine Cone, so we've got that. It'd be nice to offload that to somebody else, but we can do that. The mailing lists, we have folks compiling the hospitality mailing lists, the restaurants and the hotels, but we don't have any mailings scheduled right now. I think tomorrow at Chair Vice Chair, we're talking a little bit about the Measure J message and what messages should get out and what format, but we don't really have anything. And that's typically because the cost of mailing pieces is high, and the resolute consumer who chooses to just go immediately from P.O. box to recycling bin is pretty strong. So newsletters, we would like to up our game in newsletters because TAMSI does a mailing, Pebble Beach Community Service District does a mailing. We've typically not budgeted enough for that, but it's something that we were looking toward the new person or team to develop a strategy for getting an annual newsletter out that might be a little different than our annual report, which is more of a legislatively required item. We have a lot of what we call collateral, which are the one-pagers or the four-pagers that sit in the slots in the lobby and so forth that need to be updated and made current. That's the overview of the mitigation program, the ASR program, things that we've done that are kind of leave behinds when we visit with legislators or takeaways when somebody comes into our lobby. So that's just kind of permanently on hold right now because we don't have the resources. Guest opinions and editorials, we've done that on our own before. When we're messaging, then we involve our public outreach people to work with the message. But, the chair and I have talked about doing a guest opinion for about a month now. In fact, it's back on Chair Vice Chair to talk about tomorrow. So we can do that. Event coordination was something we were really good at. It was our team that did all of the logistics for the Pure Water Monterey groundbreaking, kickoff celebration, the ribbon cutting rather. But I don't think we have that many events other than the conservation seminars, which we're not doing in person anyway. There are no in-person events, so that can be put on hold. We're way behind on our website, social media updating. Arlene's done a really good job of updating things. Sarah's done a good job of updating things, but we don't really have a coordinated effort right now. Social media is lagging. I think Mr. Feinberg pointed out in very short order while on the phone with Stephanie, as I recall the conversation, looks like you haven't posted anything in weeks or months or something. So it's pretty obvious there. And then key meetings, that's part of the obligation of our consultant to better understand what we're doing. So all of these things can wait, certainly. And, due to budget, we had suggested that maybe we would wait due to this committee's perception that there's a lot of wheels that are turning and or balls in the air, whatever you wanted to get somebody on board. But yeah, we can wait, do a little more research, reach out a little harder, contemplate the issue that's concerning all three of you a little bit more, and maybe talk more about how to either A, insulate against that, or B, combat any perception issue. As I said, these are very talented people with good ideas, and maybe we can go find some more talented people with good ideas, but I wouldn't kick anybody out of this mix right now because of the concern over perception problem. Right now, there is a big difference in budget, which I think, as I said at the outset, actually comes closer together when you look at outside services and outside artwork and design work, which for any new branding ads, there's always a component element to that. So, but it sounds like you'd like to at least gather some more information. We can do that.
that gathering more information is important, and I really do feel we should do that. I think, however, that we really should jump on this. You just articulated so many things that we've not been doing that we really should be doing to raise our profile and to ensure that we have the right kind of outreach. So,
Well, and especially in the shelter in place mode where you're not going to do events, you need to make sure that wherever the eyeballs go is that you're
where
there.
we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. George?
I'm thinking the process that may be in front of us may be more awkward than efficient. If we were to try to recruit some more responses, they would have the benefit of this discussion or input related to this discussion. And the existing submissions will have been stuck in place, you know, from weeks ago. I'm just curious about how that might work. I'm just wondering if we forego the action, the reissuing of the RFQ. We bring these three to the board and have a discussion about where we might go. I will still kind of argue that I'm not sure we're strategically ready for a powerful agency. On the other hand, when we'll be ready, and I don't know how that might go, just simply because we're also going to have our strategic workshop with the relatively new board that exists today. We haven't had that kind of discussion yet, so there may be some new priorities established. So there may be some new ground to cover going forward, and we can cover that ground with any of the three agencies that are right now in the mix. So I'm inclined to think that we should just move it ahead to the next board meeting, have a discussion. I do have a question about, does this become contract negotiation, and is it closed session?
Yeah, I don't think the Brown Act exclusion for contract negotiation goes to this type of discussion. I think that's that safe harbor is for employee contracts and that nature, but I'll confirm that.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing with your interpretation.
Well, if it goes to the full board, I was thinking about making it an action item anyway, because I know it's going to be pulled off of consent.
Yeah.
And I looked at our agenda, and we can make it an action item or whatever, but whatever the chair want to do at this time, you know. I'm looking for somebody to make a motion, so I might jump on or might jump off.
Yeah, so we're kind of all across the board here, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
talk about feeling like the decision point is goes from one side to the other. It's like watching a ping pong game here.
Well,
Yeah.
I have another question to the general manager. Would you assume that this will be approximately a 9-month contract or longer?
Oh, the goal would be to have it, you know, you train somebody up and
Yeah, right.
they learn you and we learn them. And if the style is working and the product is good, the goal would be to renew it. But we've only got authorization for the current fiscal year.
But the initial would be just to finish the fiscal year.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd make a motion, we submit these three recommendations or three responses without recommendation to the full board for action.
Well, just to move it along, I'll give you a second on it for discussion.
I can count the votes. Okay. So,
I was looking for you, Chair, to jump on and make that motion first.
Well, I'm just shocked that somebody didn't move a particular firm for a committee recommendation and look for a second, because I don't think you're all in disagreement, but wisdom being the better part of valor, I think you've made a wise decision.
thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. So let's take it out to a vote. Could I have a roll call vote on bringing all
Yes.
three of these to the board for discussion? Thank you.
Yes. Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
and Director Adams.
Yes.
Unanimous
Oh,
approval.
that's good. It went down to 3-0. That would show the board something.
There we go. 3-0 that we couldn't make a decision.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel more comfortable going that way than one of us picking one. So everybody, all
no, I
seven
think-
of us will have to say so.
Yeah, I think this is the better way to go. If any one of us is uncomfortable with the decision that we were going to be making, I think it's a good idea to get the full board's input on it. So, so with that, we've decided that we are not going to go back out to an RFQ. Lucky you, Stephanie. And we're not going to be researching other people. We're just going to take it to the board for full discussion and see where we go from there.
And Chair, before you close, Stephanie, make sure you invite all three of them to the meeting. I know those
Make
two
a
got a good
presentation.
initiative, but let's have that other one there and tell them I'm disappointed anyway that they wasn't here.
Okay, there you go. Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad we were able to survive that. And now we'll go to discussion items and see if there will be, if there's any items that we want to suggest putting on the future agendas. George?
Well, I'm not sure if it's on this agenda or some agenda, but just in terms of outreach, I'm curious if the board, I don't know how we present this, that's all. It's a question. The question is speaking or our district being represented at the Coastal Commission meeting. Is there an action that's needed for that? Is there a motion that's needed? Is there, do we just wait and see? I don't know. I think we're trying to struggle with creating more opportunities for leadership for the district. I think the recent actions of this district have put us on record in certain places. And I think our GM ought to be able to represent those positions to certain agencies like the Coastal Commission. And that I'm not saying in a public forum or anything, I just say in contact with the Coastal Commission. Would there be, I'm not sure if I'm asking this committee for action. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I know it's not an agenda item, but it's a question about how we pursue that question.
So just on that topic, let's take, for example, the letter to the State Water Board. That was a significant piece of district communication that got immediate feedback. Planning Conservation League said what a bad idea opening up the CDO would be. The Weekly jumped on it as another evidence of a record of failure of the community to act. There's some hot button issues. And this committee, to the extent that there are major issues that represent district communications, should contemplate having a position on it and recommending up to the board. That's why committees make recommendations up to the board. And so, and that's why chairmen staff the committees with their colleagues, knowing what the agendas for that year are and what personalities they want on it. So, as far as Coastal Commission goes, it's another significant action. But if the committee is split or it thinks that those issues are too big to make a recommendation on, then you need to decide if that's the case. I mean, that's where we're really at is, you're the first point that's supposed to be thinking about what are we saying and when are we saying it and how are we saying it, and then make recommendations to the board. So those types of things are fair game for this committee to develop a preliminary opinion on and push it up to the board.
Well, I look at that one. I was going to talk to you about that later, but I think we need to do a follow-up on what we sent out there, what we sent up there. We sent the demand report, and we also sent the letter of what we recommend that the board do. And if we have to talk to other staff, or other board members on the Coastal Commission, I think you ought to do that, or we ought to do that. Me and you as the chair, set up a meeting or whatever. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, and we might be doing it tomorrow in chair and vice chair meeting.
That's good.
So just letting you know, I don't know how the rest of them going to take it, but that's something we're going to have to discuss. I'm glad we brought it up.
George?
Yeah, I'm not asking for a board item. I just didn't know how to treat that subject, and I just thought this was an opportunity to
Mhm.
discuss it a little bit. So I'm not asking for an agenda item for our next meeting on this subject.
You done caused enough trouble today.
No, I think, I'm glad that you brought it up, though. I think that we are the ones that are doing the outreach, you know, that should be emanating from us. And there are so many different places where we need to be focusing. So, and many of us wear a couple of different hats, so it's, you know, a little awkward in that regard as well.
Well, and we've got to find a good way to get some Measure J information out, not just what's your timeline, but what are you learning, where are we headed? You know, we talked about online town hall meetings, but what's being evident now is there's little pieces that are getting done at various points in time. And I think we need to kind of think about, well, can we release some information and make it publicly available? Or is we go through the board on this piece and then, you know, issue a press release on it and so forth. And, you know, I don't have a clear plan, but there aren't, the schedule doesn't look like it's giving us a big event. It's giving us a series of check-ins as to where we are, what's coming together. You know, I talked to the valuation people today. They're ready to go, waiting on the real estate piece. And so until the real estate piece comes, we don't have anything to talk about. But I'm sure the advice of attorneys, that's the one piece that they're not going to want us to talk about. But there's other things that are going to have to go into the LAFCO application, so they're going to become public. You know, so when do we make them public? You know, it's just some discussion for, you know, what should we be telling the constituents over the activity? What are we doing? You know, I think there's even still kind of a little bit of, you know, Director Hoffman said, well, when I see the final feasibility report, well, there is no final feasibility report. And if that's what one of our own board members is expecting, then we probably need to translate better to the public. What is it that we're doing? Because we've already demonstrated financial feasibility. Now we're getting you all those other little pieces you need. Well, what might rates look like? What's it going to do to the average consumer? Can we offer a low income assistance program? You know, these are types of things that the answers are coming in process. Do we want to just let them out? And, you know, we need to talk to the attorneys about it, but I'm getting a lot of what's going on with Measure J. And
Well,
You know, which is exactly why we decided that we were going to try to go out to hire a PR company in the first
Right.
place. So they
exactly.
could address each one of those things and then pull together a coordinated approach. Because I think we've fallen off everybody's radar screen. You know, everything is so totally COVID now. You know, it's like, what? You know, oh yeah, I remember. So I feel like we need to reposition and represent ourselves to the general community. I liked the idea of the town hall meetings. I thought that was a great idea, but I don't think we should do that until we do some kind of an ad or some other sort of outreach, so people start to get the cobwebs away and remember who we are and what we're supposed to be doing here.
I agree with you. I agree 100% with you.
Yeah,
I
and
guess-
you know, our letter that went to the Coastal Commission brought, you know, 50% applause and 50% of snarky comments about the district going over to the dark side. And we didn't really have a, you know, we didn't really have a triage strategy in place afterwards. And it would have been useful to, when we, you know, when we drop a bomb, to be able to talk about it and get through the news cycle on it. And we weren't really ready for that one there either. So.
And we've got a lot of stuff coming up that
Yep.
is going to be generating media. And we need to have that triage package really in place.
Yep. And I guess the final thing, our Director Edwards mentioned the strategic planning session and how that's going to drive some of what we do in a communication strategy and a ad strategy and so forth. Well, if we're still under shelter in place or lack of travel and, you know, what have you, if that gets delayed any further, you might as well delay it until after the election so you know what your board constituency looks like.
I think that's a really good idea.
Hey, I agree with you because we got to that point.
We're pretty close.
September, October, November,
Yeah.
you know, and no need of doing something with board members that probably is not going. I know one probably not going to be there, so we might as well. Why waste their time and stuff? So.
Yep.
Well, what an uplifting conversation this has turned into.
Yeah. Yeah. But the need is there. The need is there because, you know, Stephanie thinks about it. She knows it's her charge, but we really want her working on other things. And so even, you know, one recycled branding ad a month is something I'd rather have somebody else do. And George is right. It can be a small shop or it could be one person in one silo of a big shop, but we need somebody to do it. We need somebody to come up with new artwork and new ideas. I mean, shoot, when every step along the way, when Pure Water Monterey hit a point where it was producing water, we ran an ad. When it was groundbreaking, we ran an ad reminding people that we're working on water supply. Well, we've got nothing in the creative, I don't know, creative what? Gates, runway. We're going to be, in about 30 days, we're going to be delivering water from Pure Water Monterey for customer service. And that's another celebratory event. It's very easy for us to always go back to the conservation messaging because we've done it so often. Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking that what we could possibly do is see if we could get somebody to design a couple of ads, not any further than that, that might cover some of these things, like Pure Water.
Yeah. Well, I just think that, you know, given everything that everyone said about the delays with Pure Water, without saying anything about the delays on diesel, which I find so ironic, but that when we meet our obligation to deliver water to customers, that should be our branding ad for the month. And I don't know, we'll have to go back into the old artwork and see if we can take one of those Pure Water Monterey. But, you know, even when we celebrated the pipeline bridge across, you know, for the Monterey pipeline, that wasn't our project, but we were basically saying, hey, water supply is coming and your district is telling you about it because we're involved in water supply. We can't miss those opportunities.
No, you're so right. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we complete our agenda in an appropriate way. And so I wanted to know if there's anyone else who has any other items. Oh, no, stop. Wanted to go back and ask another question. Is it totally too late for us to put this item on for the full board on the Friday meeting?
No, Arlene's still on. She can tell you, no, it's not too late, but
No, it's a special board meeting. We'll be getting that agenda out on Wednesday.
yeah, so we could add it.
I mean, if we're not going to be going out for any other, if we're not going out for any other proposals,
Yeah.
maybe we should go ahead and have this discussion with the full board on Friday.
That's fine with me. That's fine
Okay.
with me, Chair. If you want to go that way, I'll support that. I think we got about 2 other things, but we can get that in and we can get this moving along.
Yeah, what we're
I feel
trying to,
we really should. I mean, honestly, we've got a lot that we need to be accomplishing. And I think we need to jump on it sooner rather than later.
Okay?
yes, so that's a 3 o'clock meeting. The current agenda is, recall the ASR addendum to the EIR.
Right.
We hopefully will send to you no later than Wednesday night a confidential attorney-client memo on some options related to the Pure Water Expansion SEIR, which will then become a discussion item, but no release of the memo because it's a attorney-client privileged memo. Then we have a closed session to discuss direction from the board on the potential litigation over both the invoice and the failure to certify. So this would be a fourth one. So you run the risk of delaying that Friday afternoon cocktail, which I'm fine to do if we can get some action.
Well, what's the sequence between the closed session and open session? How do you see that?
Closed session will be at the end.
Okay.
So we add this to open session probably before the discussion of options related to the SEIR, and then adjourn to closed session, since the litigation and the SEIR discussion are more closely linked. So, but I mean, this issue may get a lot of discussion, may not. The board may just say, all right, these are the options. Pick one. You know, a 4-3 vote is all it takes to pick one.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of this current board, is you don't all agree on everything. So nothing wrong with that. Supervisors agree on everything.
Oh,
That's right.
sure. Haven't you seen all the 5-0 votes that we get?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we can add that, and Alvin, we can talk about that at chair, vice chair tomorrow, just to.
Yeah, I agree. We can add it. We can
Yeah.
can get that one, get this one out of the way so we can move it on. All right.
Okay.
Good. So the only thing I had for discussion items to be placed on future agendas was just getting the public outreach consultant plan and timeline before us sooner rather than later. So I wanted to be sure that we had that. And then what the board's role or this committee's role would be in the outreach effort that may be coming forward with their proposed plan.
Right.
And then I want to go out to the public to see if there's anyone in the public that wants to add to this discussion items for future agendas. Is there anyone out there?
I see, Mr. Wellman, you still have a raised hand. Did you want to make a suggestion under public comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my suggestion is that perhaps it would be a great opportunity on Friday to be able to make another short presentation from each one of the respective agencies. I mean, I guess the thing that I felt a lack of here is that generally when I do presentations like this, I have opportunity for a short interview with the client so that I can better understand the nature of the proposal in the first place. Because what I've learned today is considerably different than what I read in the proposal that I received. So the idea of a full-on strategic planning session was not a part of my thinking. I mean, as George said, the sense was more sort of a grow with us sort of approach. And that was exactly the approach that I took based on what I thought your needs were. So I had no understanding that a significantly larger budget was on the table.
No, and Phil, it's not. When we
No.
refer to strategic planning, it's more about the board wants to get more collegial and have more time to interact on what should be the strategic directions of the district, but that might inform what we're going to ask from our public outreach consultant. It's not something that the public outreach consultant would be leading or participating in. It's more if our messages are going to change because the makeup of the board changes or something like that, or with the current makeup of the board, which is still relatively new, if the method of developing the strategic direction of the board has changed, which it would. This is the first year we're going to use a facilitator in probably a decade. So that's what that's related to. That was not really part of the outreach effort. It becomes just the messaging as part of the outreach effort is going to derive from any changes to the strategic direction of the board. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
Okay.
Mr. Feinberg, I have unmuted you if you did want to make a public comment.
Give me the opportunity, with the comments that you've had today, and even some of the staff comments in opportunity for us to submit any or supplemental information prior to the board meeting.
I'd
I
say
don't know.
the answer is yes. Correspondence to our board is correspondence to the district, and it would be presented in the board packet or at the board meeting.
Yeah,
If
you're
that's-
running on the board packet being produced in the next couple of days.
Yeah, Wednesday. I heard it was going out Wednesday.
Okay.
And, you know, again, if either of you, Phil or Terry, need an interpreter for some of the code that was being spoken by the committee members, feel free to call Stephanie directly.
I have another comment also, and that would be maybe what we could do for the board meeting is invite these applicants to come in, and they could give an actual presentation.
Yeah, why don't you talk to each of them individually and see how they want to do it, and then
Yeah.
we'll work with Arlene to set that up.
Okay.
Yeah. Not comfortable having the applicants who have participated in this robust discussion change their proposals, because I think that would create an unfair playing field, really.
Yeah.
So I think we have what we have, and the opportunity to do a full presentation. We need to, limit the time. At the meeting on Friday would probably be the better way to go, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, so Terry, what she just said is, even though you've got the right to do correspondence, it's better to leave things set the way they are and let the full board discuss.
Right, because we're trying to set a special meeting, but we don't want to set it for all night and all evening. We're going to add this because I know those other two items going to really take us. So, yeah, let's keep it small, keep it simple.
And Mike is still open. Just for clarification, I wasn't looking to adjust or change my proposal, but in the comment made that it was unclear, or I have it up, I'm not sure exactly what the wording was, but it's additional services. So I was just going to clarify that in a presentation.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Great. George, you have your hand up?
No, I just agree. I think all three should have an opportunity to present, and all in an equal format, time frame, and whatever format they want to use. But if they can want to present something as a panelist, that's fine too.
No, I agree. I think that sounds like a good idea and a good way to structure the agenda, if the chair agrees with that.
Well, if y'all agree with it, we'll come up with something, but we ain't gonna be there all evening.
Okay.
I think the Giants playing.
Oh,
Wait, baseball's back? What?
Oh yeah, for right now, but they might shut it down. People be getting sick. Teams not playing. All right.
I thought it was just because the Giants were losing that they were going to shut it down. I would hate that.
You
Okay.
can extend when you're ready, Chair.
So is there any other comment before we adjourn the meeting? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry and Phil, for adding your comments. I thought they were really helpful. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good week.
Thank you.